My name is Linda. I am a substance abuse counselor and have been for most of my life. I am the mother of an overdose victim that died from laced methamphetamine laced with fentanyl, and I'm raising 4 of her children. I am also a mother of 3 children and happily married forever and a day. So, again, let's lean back onto the substance abuse side of me, because one of the things that I want to talk to you about is constricted blood vessel disease. Constricted blood vessel disease, if you think of a magic switch. So, what exactly is constricted blood vessel disease? Cigarettes and stimulants like cocaine, methamphetamine, crack, all of those constrict blood vessels. When you take the two of those together, it activates the genetic piece of you. You have to have a genetic predisposition for constricted blood vessel disease. So it affects organs like the heart, parts of the brain, and it can affect the legs. These are the 3 places that I see it happen. Funny little story. I teach at work, and I teach one of the classes that I teach the drug and alcohol class, and it focuses a lot on the chemistry, the brain, and all the other things like that are affected by substances. And so one of the things is I bring in literature on constricted blood vessel disease, and I kind of tell everybody how it works. Well, one of the gentlemen in my class, he was not there yesterday, and I discovered that he had went to the heart doctor. And he's on my caseload, and it's not uncommon that I sometimes forget people's history after I've had them on my caseload for a while, because I talk about their history so much when they're in my office, and I get so many people in my office. So he came in and he said, I was at the cardiologist. And I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, my heart's got some issues. So he goes on to tell me that he's got some issues with his heart. It's just not getting blood to the other areas of his body. He lifts his pant leg up and he shows me his leg that's very puffy and swollen. And this is a thinner man, but his leg was huge. And he takes his finger and he pokes on his calf, which is really swollen, like can't even fit a sock around it. And when he pushes his hole in, he pushes his finger on his leg, his finger makes a hole or a tunnel on his leg, and it pokes down to, like, I guess where the bone is. Doesn't penetrate the skin, but it looks like, if you have a piece of clay, it looks like somebody poked it and left an indentation or a tunnel with the finger, and the skin does not bounce back. So that tunnel stayed in his leg. And the first thought that crossed my mind is constricted blood vessel disease. And so I said, did you do cocaine and smoke, or crack, or meth? And he said, well, funny you should ask that, because when I was at the doctor yesterday, he said, you have constricted blood vessel disease. Do you use these drugs? And he said, and I remembered sitting in your class and going, oh my gosh, she was 100% right. So he has developed constricted blood vessel disease in his leg, meaning that the blood doesn't pump through his leg like it should. He's also got it in his heart. More commonly, I've seen it in the leg, and I've seen it in the brain. Now, when you get it in the brain, you can get something like aneurysms, you can get epilepsy out of the blue. I met a female that did cocaine and cigarettes forever and ever, and she developed it in her brain. She had no history of epilepsy in her family anywhere, but one day she's trotting across the road, walking over to the grocery store, and she falls out in the middle of a busy intersection and has a seizure right there in the middle of the road. She wakes up in a pool of blood with the paramedics around her, and this happens to her so frequently that she starts to have some concerns, like, what in the heck is wrong with me? So she had to go see a specialist, go do all these studies. And when all the paperwork came back, me and the doctor that was working on staff, we were all reading it. It said constricted blood vessel disease. And I said, what in the world? What does that have to do with a seizure? That doesn't make sense to me. And that's what started me going down the rabbit hole and learning all about it. And since that day, I have seen it. I've seen it over and over again. And that's one of the things that I pay attention to when I'm doing an assessment. Somebody sits down, they say, I took a stimulant. I ask them, did you smoke too? And are you aware that you can develop these things? Now, I've also seen too, I had a gentleman one time that developed constricted blood vessel disease. He'd stopped using it, and about a year after he stopped using, he fell out of a bunk bed and he cracked his head from here all the way up to the top, because he had his first seizure, and it was because not enough blood was flowing through the brain, and he ended up having a seizure. He lost all of his reading and writing skills, and he had to work real hard to get those back. So it's some serious stuff. And when they talk about on the pack of cigarettes, they say may cause heart problems or something of that nature. I don't have a pack of cigarettes in front of me. That's exactly what they're talking about. And it even makes you kind of wonder, like the blood vessels in the lungs also probably get constricted, and does that have a factor in cancer? When you don't have enough blood flow going through your heart or your lungs, does that increase your odds for cancer? It seems logical. It may. I don't know. I haven't read that literature on it, but it's another thing too. Like, just like I said in the previous video, you think these things are going to bring you some kind of something good, like, I'm going to have some energy, I can concentrate, it isn't going to hurt me, it's this, that, whatever we want to justify it as. But there are long-term consequences. So sometimes just quitting the substance doesn't keep you safe from having things like constricted blood vessel disease. You sometimes can develop that later on, and it can be lasting effects forever. I know I met somebody that hadn't used for a long time, and his leg was constantly swollen up. He had to have fluid drained out of his leg. He couldn't put a pair of pants on. He had to wear shorts because he couldn't get the pants over his legs because they were so swollen. And his was in the thigh and in the calf. So I've seen it over and over again. And when you're doing these things, there's going to be some consequences. More than just I might overdose and die, or I'm going to have the consequences of addiction because I'm going to lose my family, my job, and my kids. Sometimes there's long-lasting health consequences that happen that you have to deal with.